This Shabbat, Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg is here to share us her thoughts about reproductive rights, and Kathy Cabron is going to introduce. For those of you who are reading as part of One Book, One Congregation here all along, you'll know that Rabbi Ruttenberg is quoted quite a bit, so I'm very excited that you're here. I'm having a little bit of a fangirl moment, so thank you very much for being here. Kathy?
Shabbat Shalom. It's my honor to introduce Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg, who's an award-winning author and writer, currently the scholar in residence for the National Council of Jewish Women. I studied remotely with her this week in a symposium entitled Purim, an Intersectional Feminist Celebration. Her newest book on repentance and repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World, is a National Book Award winner, and Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley calls it a must-read for anyone navigating the work of justice and healing. Her other publications include the book We Send, Beth Emmet Sends to Every Family That Has a New Baby. We send one of Rabbi Ruttenberg's books. The title is Nurture the Wow, Finding Spirituality in the Frustration, Boredom, Tears, Poop, Desperation, Wonder, and Radical Amazement of Parenting. She's also written a book called Surprised by God, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Religion, as well as The Passionate Torah, Sex and Judaism, Yentl's Revenge, The Next Wave of Jewish Feminism, and 3 books on Jewish ethics. And she has been a Washington Post Sunday crossword puzzle clue. Is that cool? Rabbi Ruttenberg will share her perspective on the Torah of Reproductive Justice. And before I turn over the microphone to her, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, you're invited to join us upstairs here at Beth Emmet. We are going to be packing comfort care bags for women or people who have had abortions, so we'd love to have your help. Rabbi Ruttenberg.
Thank you. Hi, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for having me here. I am genuinely honored to be here. So I'm an Evanstonian, for those who don't know, and probably fewer people know that I actually grew up in the area. I went to New Trier, which meant that I spent a lot of time at Steep and Brew, Cafe Express, right? I was around when caffeine opened, right? I was that generation. And when I was in high school, I also, with a friend, once a week, would get up early and go into the city to do abortion clinic defense. Because then, as now, anti-abortion activists were outside clinics screaming and yelling and sometimes obstructing patients' way to try to go get the health care that they needed. This was in the early 90s, so this is when Operation Rescue was big, for those of you who remember them. And this was around the time that Planned Parenthood versus Casey was decided. That is to say, the second case that recodified our constitutional right to abortion access. This week's Parsha in Tetzaveh, we see a pasuk, a verse that says, "V'asita bigdei kadesh la'aharon achicha lekavod v'letiferet," and you should make sacred garments for Aaron, your brother, for kavod, for glory, and for tiferet, for splendor. Those are both, kavod and tiferet are both sfirot, Kabbalistic attributes. Just picture this wrapping in light. Right? 1992 was about the time they started with terrorism of abortion clinics. But it was before they killed Dr. George Tiller, who was the doctor who gave abortion care to most of Kansas. 24% of people who can get pregnant will have an abortion by the age of 45. That's 1 in 4. 1 in 4 people who can get pregnant will have an abortion by the age of 45. Right? That means that many people in every single community, including this one, have had abortions, right? As Evanstonian Renee Bracey Sherman says, everyone loves someone who has had an abortion, whether they know it or not, whether they have disclosed to them or not. Most people who have abortions are parents who are already making decisions about how to best care for the children they already have, right? Everybody loves someone who has an abortion. If you are one of those people, know that it is a gift if you share your story with the people in your life, with some of the people in your life, publicly, if that feels right to you. Because when you share your story, you let people in and you help to destigmatize a stigmatized health care procedure. And the more that we can tell our stories, the more everybody can understand that this is a healthcare procedure that many people in their lives have had. You understand? The more that we let the anti-abortion agenda to think of abortion as something other than a healthcare procedure, we let them win when it's stigmatized. And I say this as a queer Jew who has had a D&C, okay? So we contextualize. The reason and I'm going to say LGBT rights movement, because trans people are in danger right now. Trans rights are in a separate category right now. But the reason that the gay rights movement took off the way it did and accelerated so quickly in such a short amount of time is that people came out. Suddenly, the homosexual, right, gay people, bi people, lesbians, queer people were not some terrifying abstract thing that was other people. Other people have abortions, right? It was my friend, my neighbor, my sibling, right? My kid. The more we can tell our abortion stories, the more we can begin to change culture. And the stronger a movement we can build. Abortion bans impact us all, but they do not impact us all equally. Right now, in the United States, 58% of people live in a state that has low or no abortion access. 58%. And people who live in a state that has low or no access, maternal death rates are 62% higher. Okay? זכור את עמלק, זכור את אשר עשה לך את עמלק בדרך. Right? Remember, I can't read my own Hebrew handwriting. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way. This is Parshat Zachor, right? This is the special Shabbat when we read the story of someone who went out of their way to attack those who were the weakest, who were the most vulnerable when we were in the desert, when we were trying to find our way. The people who were most struggling, most trying to keep up with everyone else. Amalek went after them. And we are commanded this Shabbat to not forget that. Abortion bans intensify every single social inequality that exists in this country. Abortion care disproportionately impacts those who are struggling to get by financially, people of color, trans people, immigrants, young people, people in rural communities, disabled people, right? Every single community that is marginalized is more marginalized and more harmed by abortion bans. People are more likely to be brought into poverty or trapped in abusive relationships as a result of being denied abortion bans, okay? And then when you think about who is impacted most and then what the impact is, right, this entrenches everything. Black women are 3 times more likely than white women to die of maternal-related deaths. Trans men are 1 in 5 trans men are likely, who get pregnant, some of whom want to be pregnant, 1 in 5 trans men is likely to try an unsafe method for abortion because there are so many other obstacles, including being misgendered, that are set up in their way, right? There are, and we haven't even talked about the Hyde Amendment, right, which since 1976, a very significant percentage of Black, Latina, and Indigenous women have not had any access to care because they have been on federal programs, right? Who is Amalek going after? Who does Amalek always go after? The people who are most struggling, the people who are most vulnerable, the people who are most marginalized, right? Amalek is going to keep pushing everyone back and pushing everyone down. And the reason we are commanded to remember Amalek, to not forget, and to blot out Amalek's name is because if these systems don't change, this will continue to happen, right? The anti-abortion movement is a direct response to the failure of school segregation, right? Anti-abortion work is rooted in white supremacy. Right? This 50-year campaign is all rooted in white supremacist, Christian fundamentalist supremacy. Right? It is all intertwined. We know that abortion is permitted in Judaism, right? The Talmud teaches that the fetus is, quote unquote, mere water for the first 40 days, and it is part of the pregnant person's body for the rest of the pregnancy. And 40 days, by the way, is 7 to 8 weeks gestation. By the way we count now, since 40 days is from conception, 66% of abortions actually happen in that time. So if you think about it, and our sources are extremely clear that that not only is abortion permitted, but if it is the pregnant person's life at stake, right? If the pregnant person is endangered, an abortion is a mitzvah, right? It is required. It is a commandment. So that means that abortion is not only a violation of the Establishment Clause, because we are passing laws based on one religion's idea of when life begins, which is not our religion's idea of when life begins, but it is a violation of the free exercise laws, because there are times when Jewish law would tell us that an abortion is necessary, or our own conscience, our understanding of justice, right? There are many, 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 many Jewish arguments for abortion justice, and the state of Texas says no. Right? That there are 2 different ways that abortion bans are a violation of our freedom, right? Of our religious freedom. And that's why you may have seen, I don't know, for people who have been paying attention, you see all of these cases that are popping up with Jews as the plaintiffs in all of these states. That's the reason, because this is a real case in Kentucky, in Indiana, in oh my gosh, there are so many. In Missouri, that's another one. All 3 of these, National Council of Jewish Women is actually actively involved in the process. And because this is a legitimate violation of our constitutional right in addition to the 14th Amendment. So the Sfat Emet teaches about this kavod and tiferet, right? We come back to these garments. That if you have this point, this kavod and tiferet, these garments of your soul, and you have this point, each of these are a point of light, and the way you draw the divine down to you is by filling up the points with light. And the more your deeds draw light to you, the more you will fill up the garment with light. And it will be something like an armor of holiness is sort of the imagery that he gives me, right? The more your deeds follow light, the more it will start to flow without end. We have this image, you remember this image of being wrapped in kavod and tiferet, glory and splendor, right? It's a protective robe, but it's also a way to fill us up. We have a lot of work to do, yeah? There's a lot of work to do. National Council of Jewish Women has been doing this work since 1893. We helped co-found some of the very first family planning centers in the United States, some of which then got rolled into a newfangled organization called Planned Parenthood. We have been working on abortion since well before Roe. We've been behind basically every major civil rights legislation of the last 100 years, involved with. And now we have the Jews for Abortion Access, which is a community-wide movement to change now, right? We are in it for the long haul. We have 2,500 rabbis for repro who are poised all around the nation, including here, and getting armed with resources, with directions, with action, right? We've raised over $1 million for the Jewish Fund for Abortion Access to directly fund both abortions and travel care. And now we're pivoting to have 3 levers. One, directly funding abortions and the organizations that support them. One, with an emergency fund so that we can be nimble because there are things happening on the ground, whether that's supporting people who have IVF cases, right, or supporting people who need emergency care now. And then one is supporting the systemic change on the ground, because if we're supporting people who need abortion today and not fighting to change tomorrow, we're not doing our jobs, right? So the Jewish Fund for Abortion Justice is here doing the work on the ground, and we have all the time done the work in coalition with the people most impacted. Because if we're standing around deciding for ourselves without asking the people who are harmed most and being in relationship with those who are harmed most by these bans, we are not doing our jobs, right? We are here to do our jobs and to do them well, right? We are here to show up as Jews with our Jewish values, not despite our religion, but because of it, right? To say we are commanded to pursue a more just future. And part of our obligation means making sure that every single person has access to all of the health care they need and deserve, right? Our job as Jews is to show up and bring tomorrow into now. And in order to do that, we need tools, right? We need to be drawing down the light. We need to be coming from this place where our work and our deeds are adding more and more light, where we are coming together and each of us is doing something to add light to the movement so that then we can all come together and blow Amalek out of the water, right? We can't forget, we must erase the systems. It's not enough to just tell the story, right? It's urgent. The erasure is urgent. We cannot pause and say it's good enough. Oh, whoops, they passed a Hyde Amendment. I guess we'll sit on our laurels for the next 40 years and see what happens, right? That, as it turns out, hurt a lot of people because we were not remembering. We've got to remember, and who we have to remember is who is left behind. And to say it is our job to make sure that nobody gets left behind. So we have to put on our armors full of light. We have to become radiant. And we have to know that every single step we take and every action we take is going to add more light to the fight for abortion justice, because lives are at stake now, right? People are suffering now, and they need us now. Jewish Fund for Abortion Justice we're doing work right now. We are supporting people right now. NCJW is supporting people right now. There is a bill in the Illinois State House right now that is going to try to limit the access of crisis pregnancy centers, which are anti-abortion, basically disinformation centers that go when people who don't know what to look for are looking for abortion care and wind up getting talked out of having an abortion. And it is not the job of the people at the crisis pregnancy center to have that pregnancy or have that baby, right? They are not the people who are hurt. So there's an important bill in the Illinois State House now. I just tweeted it out today, information. We're looking for the witness slips. I can get you information to send out. So those WHIPA, Women's Health Protection Act, is hopefully coming back around into the House and Senate. That would codify Roe as law, right? So we don't have to worry about the rights part anymore. But rights don't mean anything if you can't access them. So we then have EACH, which is the act that would blast Hyde out of the water and make sure that everyone who needs access can have it, because everybody deserves it, right? So we have an obligation to fight for both WIPA and EACH. And that's our job. We have to remember, we have to put on our garments of light. We have to walk down day after day after day and pull that light down. And we can't ever forget. Shabbat Shalom.
Wow, and thank you. Your passion is a blessing and an inspiration, and it's an invitation to get involved. And Beth Emmett is standing up and engaging. I want to thank Kathy Cabron and Judy Kaplan, Michelle Oxman, and so many others who are really engaging in this important work, so thank you. My daughter, who was then 23, and I were in Washington, D.C. the day that Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed, and we head straight to the Supreme Court. And I have to tell you, that's one of the most powerful experiences, because women after woman after woman stood up and shared their stories, and it was quiet. Everybody listened, and we all bared witness to the horrors that were going on, the fear, the scare. It was unbelievable. So that within itself, we need to engage, so thank you very much. And now Rebecca Rouse.